Welcome to the October 3rd, 2017 Selectmen's Meeting held at 272 Main Street in Townsend. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order and roll call, please.
Sulicio present.
Gordon Clark present. Mr. Kryler, do you have anything for us at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if it pleases the board, we need to recess for a half hour. Cindy King is actually at the VFW for John Whitmore's event that they're holding there in honor of him. So she asked that we put the meeting off until she's able to be here. She may be here sooner than 6:30, but 6:30 to be safe.
Okay, if it's all right with Sue, I'll take a motion to go into recess to 6:30 p.m., please.
I move that we recess the meeting until 6:30.
Second, motion's been made. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect that Lizion Clark, yes. Folks, we'll be in recess to 6:30 approximately. We'll be back. Thank you. Welcome back, folks, from our recess. Do we need to do another roll call for Cindy's coming after? Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so I'll start from the top just to do this right, folks. Thank you for your patience. I'm calling the meeting back into order, and I would ask for a roll call vote at this time.
Sulicio present. Cindy King is present.
And Gordon Clark present. At this time, I would ask you to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to announce at this time that the meeting is being tape recorded. If anyone else is doing that, just let us know, please. At this time, I'd like to take an opportunity to, in a second, have a moment of silence for a member of our community. The Board of Selectmen would like to express their sympathy to the family of John Whitmore, who is a great friend to the town of Townsend. John served the town in many ways, including serving as a member of the Townsend Police Department, Cemetery and Parks Commission, Playground Committee, Personnel Board, Board of Assessors, and currently was serving as a town constable. It was because of his dream of uniting the residents of Townsend that the town was able to enjoy the town-wide picnic this past August. At this time, we would like to offer a moment of silence in the memory of John. Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Moving on to 1.4, Chairman's additions or deletions. I'll go down the list and then I'll come back up to the top. I would like to take a vote to take 3.1 out of order, also to table agenda item 2.1 until the next regularly scheduled meeting, and change meeting time from the agenda item 2.2 to 7:30, and that is the superintendent. Is that right, Mr. Kryler?
Correct.
Thank you. 5.1.8, approve hiring of a conservation agent. 5.1.9, fire station project notice to proceed. And 5.3, add approval of meeting minutes for April 25th, 2017. At this time, I would take them...
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go.
Just one thing, Mr. Carter, we left, by mistake, we left that third bullet under my updates on.
I was going to be able to address that, just that it was something in my notes, but that you weren't actually prepared or planning to speak to it.
Yeah. So we're just taking that one off.
Okay, and let me go forward. So that's 5.2. Okay, well, thank you for that, Sue. But normally during updates is just not full discussion, it's just us updating other members of the board. So, but thank you, we'll know that we're not going to cover that tonight.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I address the public?
Absolutely.
Okay, first I want to thank everyone for waiting to start this meeting. It's my fault that we're sitting here at 6:45 before we started this meeting. I want to apologize, but I also want to let you know what I was doing. As you know, John Whittemore was an important member of our community, and he was a task commander of the VFW. And at 6 p.m., there was a VFW ceremony planned to show respects as a post to John Whittemore and his family. And I chose to participate in that because I am a past commander of the VFW as well. And I thought it was more important for the community that I participate in that ceremony as opposed to coming to the Board of Selectmen. I spoke to Ms. Kryler and said, I'm going to be late, and that's how it's going to be. And the board was, apparently the chair had agreed that that was okay, and I stayed beyond that to go through the line as an individual, and I just want to tell you that the line is still there. It's a lot of people in the community are recognizing John and his family for the service that he provided, and it was really important, and I'm really glad that I did that, and I want to apologize to the community for holding up the Selectmen's meeting, but just want to let you know that that's what I was doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for, I know other staff members in the building went to, I'm sure, support
Yes,
John's
there were
family.
many community members.
So thank you for representing the board for that. I appreciate that. Going back to 1.4, I would take a motion to take 3.1 out of order. Does anyone make that motion?
Make a motion to take 3.1 out of order.
Do we have a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and second to take 3.1 out of order. All in favor? Aye. The record shows unanimous. At this time, we will move up to 3.1, appointments of officials, personnel votes may be taken, discussion referencing appointment permanent police chief and deputy police chief. At this time, I'm going to turn it, to start with, over to Mr. Crowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you follow along in your agenda, the first under 3.1 is permanent police chief. It reads as follows. As per the discussion and prior vote of the board, the position of permanent police chief was posted. Current interim chief of police, Rick Bailey, was the lead applicant. Interim Chief Bailey's cover letter and resume are enclosed for your review and consideration. It is the town administrator's strong recommendation, so my strong recommendation, that the board appoint Interim Chief Bailey to the position of Permanent Chief of Police of the Townsend Police Department and to enter into executive session to negotiate terms and conditions of an employment contract.
At this time,
I presume there are going to be some questions?
Sure. So I'll
For
turn
members of the board?
Sue to start with, if that's okay.
I just have one question. Somebody mentioned that Chief Bailey is still on the website in another community in New Hampshire as working for them.
Which community?
I thought it was Hollis.
It is. And, Mr. Chairman, if I could address that.
Absolutely.
The understanding was, per the board's vote on the Section 19 waiver, that if the Section 19 waiver was to be granted, that Chief Bailey would discontinue his work in Hollis. There will be some discussion, if you choose to make a permanent appointment, that I would anticipate in executive session around the issue of his New Hampshire certification and keeping it current. But that would be a discussion down the road, if in fact we go down the road, but that will be changing.
Anything else, Sue?
That's all.
Thank you. Cindy, do you have anything at this time?
How long was this posted?
The charter and the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual requires that the notice be posted on the town bulletin board for 10 days, and that the consideration of an appointment not take place until the 14th day. So that would have been yesterday, the 14th day. So here we sit at the 15th day.
And there's no other applicants?
No.
I have no questions at this time. Mr. Crowther, would you give some guidance on how we might proceed?
Certainly. If it pleases the board, motion to appoint Rick Bailey as the permanent chief of police for the town of Townsend, subject to successful negotiations of a contract.
I do have one other question.
Sure, absolutely.
Would something like a probationary period be part of that contract discussion as well?
That's all subject to negotiation.
In executive
Absolutely.
session.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. The whole thing is subject to negotiation, basically, right?
Correct.
Okay. I move that the board appoint Rick Bailey. Is that, should it be Richard? Okay. Richard Bailey. I won't call you that, okay, I promise. To the position of Chief of Police, permanent Chief of Police for Townsend, and to enter into executive session to negotiate the terms and conditions. So it's pending the terms and conditions of an employment contract.
Second.
Motion's been made in second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record reflect it's unanimous vote, and are we looking for guidance? Is this correct, Mr. Kryler?
Certainly.
If we could bring up the applicant for deputy chief?
Yep, we'll go to the next one.
Thank you.
I'll read first. On the agenda, deputy chief position. As per the discussion and prior vote of the board, the position of deputy chief was posted. We received a number of very high-quality applicants. In fact, it was 27 applicants. And interim Chief Bailey interviewed who he considered the top 3 candidates. It is interim Chief Bailey's strong recommendation that the board consider the appointment of Mr. or Chief James Sartell of Brookline, New Hampshire, to the position of Deputy Chief for the Townsend Police Department. Further, it's the recommendation of the chief and me that if such an appointment is made, that the board enter into executive session to discuss a memorandum of agreement with the deputy chief.
With the board's permission, I'm going to ask Chief Bailey and Chief Sartell, because you are chief still, to come up and sit up here, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anything to you, Maurice?
Before you actually dive into anything, just so the record is clear, at the last meeting of the Select Board, there was a Section 19 waiver request that was submitted by Chief Bailey to you, and that is because there is a relationship between Chief Sartell and Chief Bailey in that Chief Sartell, as the chief in Hollis, sat in that position while Chief Bailey was on the roster and did event details. So in order to dispel any concern about a conflict of interest, the law provides an opportunity for the chief to present a writing to his appointing authority, which is you, laying out the interaction and the financial relationship and looking for a determination from you that his participation in a matter with this person would not impact the integrity of what's expected of him for his public service. You did vote for that in the affirmative, and that is on file. So just wanted to make that clear before the discussion begins, that that was all taken care of before Chief Bailey engaged with Chief Sartell.
Thank you for that, and at this time, if there's nothing further, I'm going to turn to Sue.
Oh, what is Cindy?
Well, I just like to, so I don't lose track, keep the same method every week, so it's all right.
So you want to know if I have questions? Is that what?
Oh, absolutely, I just want to give you the opportunity.
Okay. Chief Bailey, how many applicants did we get for the position?
I believe it was 27.
And how many interviews did you conduct?
3,
Including the chief?
including, yes.
And Chief, are you certified to Mass?
No,
No?
I have an
Okay.
entry certification.
So we would need to go through the same thing that you went through, Chief Bailey?
Right, we would apply for an exemption with the licensing authority. Those are routinely granted, especially given the chief's background and experience, and that he is currently a police officer that's certified in New Hampshire. They would they will most likely give him an exemption, and then they'll most likely give him an exemption, and during a 90-day period following that, he'll need to complete an examination for them. And at that time, he'll be fully certified in Massachusetts. The same process that I went through.
May I continue?
Absolutely.
Chief, how long have you been in Hollis?
I've been in Hollis almost my entire adult life. I've been there for 20 years. I think I'm in my 21st year.
And how many as a chief?
6. I was appointed chief in 2011.
Okay. Why would a current police chief that's been there for 6 years want to come here as a deputy?
Sure, I've reached my retirement age. I've been eligible to retire for a few years. In the New Hampshire system is 20 years. I'm at age 45, and I'm disclosing my age, which I'm not comfortable with anymore. But I've had that for a couple of years. So our family plan, my wife and I's family plan, was to do something when that time period came. But we have 2 children. I have a sophomore and an 8th grader. So my plan was to stay in Hollis until they were either out of high school or darn near it. This opportunity came along, and I think it's a perfect fit. I only live about 5 miles from up the road here. I'm a parishioner here in town. I spend quite a bit of time in Townsend. I understand the town as it is, as far as I see. So I thought it was a good fit. I thought the professional challenge, and it does fit with my long-term career goals. So I understand the community policing philosophy that Chief Bailey brings. It's very consistent with mine. It's very consistent with the way I've done business in my entire career in Hollis. I believe that's what, I think it's true. I think it's right. I think the people in Townsend will appreciate that. I think they embrace a community policing type of an approach, and I feel I would be a good fit for that.
Yeah, we see lots of people coming from New Hampshire here to continue their careers, if you will, because of the mandatory.
It's not mandatory.
I thought it was mandatory.
You have the ability with 20 years and age 45. It's changed. It's not as good a system now for new people coming into it. But for folks that have been there for a long time, that's the system. And it allows folks like myself or the chief to go to another state to continue our policing careers and collect a pension at the same time.
Is it going to be difficult for you guys to work together because the roles are going to be reversed?
I certainly don't believe so. We've worked together for a number of years. I think he's seen my value system. I think he's seen how I apply that as a manager. I think he's seen me in and about the community and how I approach those types of things. He's watched me make some very difficult decisions, both as a manager and as a person. So I don't think that at all. In fact, I have a very stable job. I feel very happy where I'm at. If I thought there was any sort of that going on, I wouldn't be interested, to be honest. I really wasn't looking for a job. Again, my primary concern is my family and raising my family where I feel is the best place to raise a family in the world, which is our area. So I had no intention of looking for a job. I think this fits perfectly. We've worked together for a number of years. I look up to him. I always have. I look at his career. I've known him for a long time. I don't feel as though it's the least bit awkward or even difficult.
I'm all set for now.
Thank you. Cindy?
How big is Hollis? What's the population?
It's about 8,000. About 8,000.
Okay, so you're pretty close to ours.
Very comparable.
How big is your department?
We have 17 sworn, I believe. I oversee about 30 employees. In addition to the sworn, I oversee a dispatch center that dispatches police, fire, and ambulance for 3 communities. So I think I have 30 employees all in, about a $2 million budget.
And what's the chain of command within the department?
I have, the chief sits at the top. I have 2 bureau commanders that are the rank of lieutenant, and underneath them I have a support services lieutenant who runs our prosecution wing, our detective wing, fleet maintenance, that kind of thing. And on the other side, that other lieutenant oversees the patrol division.
Okay. And you mentioned you have a regional dispatch?
Correct. Yeah, 3 towns.
What are the towns?
Brookline, Hollis, and Mason.
Okay. How long have you managed that?
It's been how long have I managed it?
Yeah. How long has it been in existence?
Oh, it's been in existence since 1991.
Okay.
Towns of Hollis and Brookline got together at that point. Hollis had always had a 24-hour dispatch center. Brookline in 1991, they share about 15% of the cost. We added Mason a few years ago.
Okay, so your experience working, I mean, we're new to the regional
Sure.
business.
Sure, a little difficult.
So you're prepared to,
Sure, in fact, I just closed the contracts for the other two communities last night. We just had them approved at a public meeting. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of shared resources and collaboration that is needed. I think it's very important. I think that's the way that things are moving. It certainly makes sense at some level, but it's not without its difficulties.
any of the challenges?
Yeah, I think so. Getting everybody together and being that multidiscipline dispatch, it makes it even more difficult. You can't specialize in policing. You have to have a medical background and a fire background. I learned more about run cards than ever I thought I would from the fire end, and water sources and things as a policeman I really didn't have any interest in. So it's really provided me an education into those disciplines, that's for sure. And it's a very fluid field. Technology changes all the time. It's very IP-based. It's something you need to be modern with and really keep up with. It's a challenge, to be sure.
And we've talked about community policing. Are you familiar with Townsend?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and Townsend's very interested in community-based everything.
Sure.
And involvement with the community is important. I know that Chief Bailey and your interest in being involved with different levels of the community and community activities and different departments. You said you're a commissioner here, but different groups that are you used to, or what, let me ask it this way, what involvement in your community in Hollis have you been involved with the community?
Oh boy, that's a mouthful. I've been around for a long time. I've really spent my entire adult life there. I coached the high school baseball team for probably 20 years. I do now, as it stands now. I've been involved in youth organizations for that for probably even a little bit longer. There's a whole host of community activities we have both, and I take place in both professionally and personally. That's always something I've passed along to my children as well. Community engagement isn't just something you do for work. It's who you are really in a lot of ways. So I have a whole host of community activities. But you mentioned something I think is important. I think community policing is something that American citizens want. I don't think it's limited to a town. I think it's all citizens want that. I believe in consent of the governed. I really do. I think transparency is key. That's how I've operated as a manager. That's how I've operated as a father. I think that's very important. So I don't think that there's a way to provide police services without communicating with and collaborating with the community at a very granular level. And I don't think you do that through special interests. I don't think you do that from your office. I think you do that from getting to know the people in your community. And I think that that's what I've tried to do. That's what the two chiefs prior to me had done. And I think that works. And again, I don't think it's something just the town of Townsend wants. I think that's what the American people want. I sit on the Community Policing Committee for IACP, which is the International Association of Chiefs of Police. There's 30 members on that committee from all around the world. And I think it's something that people hunger for. We don't want to be ruled. We're not subjects of a king. I think that interaction, and we give the police services that the townspeople want. And you've got to find that value system, and you police consistent with those values. I believe that to the core. I wouldn't be able to police in any other setup, to be honest.
When's the last time you worked for somebody else?
6 years ago, although I do some professional things outside of policing. And I have a philosophy. I don't think you take orders from somebody. I think you take the orders from the circumstances and the situations that you face. And I think if you have a shared objective and the mission of the agency is very well known, there's very little to order. I think you take your orders from the circumstances and from the situation that you see. So I work for my wife. She's in the back of the room. I work for my daughter. I work for the townspeople. I always say the higher you get the closer you get to the top of the mountain, the sooner you realize it really isn't one. I just changed bosses. My bosses changed from the chief to the townspeople, to the boards, to the town administrator, and they serve 1 million masters when you are in that job. And again, so I felt as though I've worked for somebody the entire time.
Hollis have a board of selectmen, or how does?
They do a 5-member board of selectmen.
Okay.
What you would consider a strong chief if you were to use those types of. I report directly to the board of selectmen. The town administrator is a colleague in Hollis. That's the way it's always worked. Present the budget to a budget committee, present the budget to a board of selectmen, and then present it at town meeting.
So you'd be a good budget person.
I will tell you that he and I will make a good team. He has a lot of the skills and abilities that I have, but he has them at a higher level. And I think some of the things that I do well, we complement each other well. And it will be a good team.
Great. I'll stop with my interrogation.
Yes, that's it. Thank you. We all set, folks?
I'm good.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, I just have two quick things. I would ask Mr. Crowler, as long as it's all right with the rest of the board, that if we do decide to hire the chief and we come to successful negotiations, that I would request, as long as there's no confidential material, that both their resumes be put online so that people in town know we're hiring. I won't take time to go over your resume because I want to be home by 10 o'clock tonight, and your resume speaks on itself. But I had a chance to meet you for the first time out here, and the things I came away with in that short meeting was I think it's just the medicine we need. I got a sense of leadership by presence and leadership by how you act. And then I got a sense of competency, that you are competent and that the chief has abilities, that you both complement each other and you both love serving people. So I think that, Chief, congratulations on putting a team together that will serve us for many years after I'm gone. And lastly, I think you're a man of integrity, and we can use integrity. We can all, in all public service. So with that, I will, if there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
If it please the board, Mr. Chairman, an appropriate motion would be to appoint Chief James Sartell of Brookline, New Hampshire, to the position of Deputy Chief of the Townsend Police Department, subject to successful negotiation of a memorandum of agreement.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Board of Selectmen appoint Mr. James Sartell of Brookline, New Hampshire, to the position of Deputy Chief for the Townsend Police Department, subject to successful negotiations for a memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. At this time, I would like to go on to 3.1.1, that the board may enter into executive session pending outcome of agenda item 3.1, executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Section 2, to discuss strategy or conduct negotiations with non-union personnel with respects to the police chief and deputy chief.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was just wondering, given that we got kind of a late start, well, later than even we expected, it's 7:10. Superintendent Landers is here for the 7:30. Can we let her do hers and then do the executive session?
I believe the town administrator already had contact with the superintendent, told her that this was going to happen. She expects that we may be a little delayed. Thank you, superintendent. She's right over there shaking all this that. So I would be in favor of
We're
going
going to
forward.
get through 2 negotiations in 20 minutes?
I didn't say 20 minutes. The superintendent's already told 7:30 was rough, and they may go past that. I would entertain a motion if you wanted to go now. So we'll have a vote to see if we go into it or not. Do we have a motion?
I don't want to feel rushed in
I'm
the
just asking.
executive session. I would rather move it to the end.
I promise you, we will not rush you. We have other things to do at the end.
I make a motion that we enter into executive session pending outcome, well, that we enter executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel with respect to the police chief and deputy chief. And to return to regular order business after.
Those sessions, I assume, would be separate?
Let's do it. Do we have a second? Second. Motion's been made and second. All in favor? This requires a roll call vote. Sue Lizio?
No.
Cindy King?
Aye.
Gordon Clark, yes. Let the record show. Lizio, no. Clark and King, yes. We'll be going to executive session. Folks, because we're going to have multiples here, the outer lobby will be closed until we come back into session. We'll let you know that. So this area, the outer lobby and the 2 offices will be closed for public. The outside will be open for you. Thank you. We're now into executive session. Thank you, folks. Welcome back. We're back in session, now open session. I want to thank everyone who's on the agenda for their patience as we try to get a lot of work done here, but especially to Superintendent Landis. Thank you very much. We'll be to you in a moment. We just have to have a motion from executive session, Sue, please.
I moved to approve the MOA with James Sartell as presented and as modified during our discussion, and that we execute it out of session.
Second.
Motion's been made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Sue?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Let the record show it's unanimous. At this time, give me a second here.
2.2.
Thank you. 2.2. We will let Superintendent Landis, could you come up and join us, please? And thank you. 2.2, Joe Landis, North Middlesex Regional School District Superintendent, referencing solar panel installation for the new high school located on 19 Main Street in Townsend. Welcome, and thank you.
Thank you. So last night, the school committee approved going forward with a power purchase agreement with Power Options for solar panels on the roof of the high school and actually at the Ashby Elementary School. So what we found out was that we need to declare the space, the roof space, as surplus and submit a letter to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. So that's why I'm here tonight. So the only vote that I need from the Board of Selectmen is that it's surplus, and
There's a draft motion in your packet.
I got it. I'm on it. I move to approve the use of the surplus roof space at the North Middlesex Regional High School for the purpose of installing and operating for a period of at least 20 years a new rooftop solar energy system for the benefit of the North Middlesex Regional School District.
Can I ask a question before I second?
Discussion, yeah, I have a couple questions.
Well, you can put it on the floor and then have discussion.
Right, I just want to, okay.
Second for discussion.
So I made a second first? Second for discussion.
All right, discussion, we just follow here. Do you have any questions, Sue? for
I
us?
have none.
Okay, Cindy, thank you.
Okay, all right, I was thinking of a joke about the space, but we wouldn't want to be here all night. But
that's okay, I can use the joke right around now.
we have to put the surplus space out to bid. Like, other people can bid for the surplus space. No, that was a joke.
Yeah, no, I know.
Is there anything else we could use it for other than solar panels?
It's actually been on the record with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed for years, and we reached out because we heard that this is a requirement, and they will, it's not really surplus space, because what would we use it for? So
Garden.
a garden, yeah.
You could do
yes,
that.
an educational garden. So
Do a bowling alley on the high school.
I know. So that's why I'm here, because we can't move forward. We have to notify the Commissioner of Education that you're in agreement that we use it for solar panels.
Right. And my legitimate question is regarding the school budget. Well, the solar panels, is there a cost to the school? Is this something that's going to, at some point, be addressed when we're talking about our school budget within the
hopes is-
region? Are you renting these? Is there a lease agreement? Is there something that, if something goes wrong with the solar panels, is the solar panel issue something that we need to deal with from a community, a regional community?
No, not at all.
Third-party owned and operated, power comes back to the district at a discount.
Yes.
So we'll
budget
see a
savings, but no
reduction
responsibility.
eventually
Yes,
in
in the
your
budget.
energy.
Is there just, well, I'm just concerned, like, is there anything that might bite us later?
So, in this process, we worked with legal.
Okay.
Because absolutely put all the questions on the table. What were the liabilities to the district? Because the district, the school committee actually votes to go forward with this. And we worked all that with legal.
Because for the next 20 years, you're not going to come back to us and say, well, we did the solar panel thing, and no, we need to add $10,000 per town, or...
Not
The opposite.
The
I'm gonna look
opposite.
to cut 10,000.
Okay, no, I mean, just be...
I can't predict what anyone's going to do in 15 years. They might try it, but no, I'm
No, but I
teasing
mean,
you.
the
No.
original plan.
It's to generate revenue.
I'm trying to protect our
reduce our-
budget from,
Oh, absolutely. So we also took it a step further, and we looked at all the warranties, the warranty on the roof and the warranty on the electrical. I reached out to the contractor, the electrical contractor. It's really the tie-in, and we wanted to make sure that we had everything covered. And I talked to Griffin Electric, and we're fine, as long as they follow the standard criteria for installation, which they would have to in the code. And also the roof, we'll have a warranty on the roof, and then after the panels go up on the roof, they actually lay on the roof will be recertified at that time. So we looked into all those issues with legal. He went through the agreement with fine tooth comb because we didn't want anything to be a liability for the district or the communities.
And Mr. Chair, Power Options is,
You know,
they are the
consortium.
standard. Yeah, they are the standard. They do all educational and housing authority. They're the standard out there.
They just worked with the Lunenburg Public Schools.
okay, and all the contracts will be with the school committee, will be doing the contracts with all these different entities that...
Yes.
Okay, and you're all set with that?
Yes.
The only thing you need from us is to
That you,
declare the surplus roof.
That's all we need.
Okay.
I just need a little education, which is a regular thing around here, actually. Sue has a lot of experience with the schools, I don't. Is this vote only going to require Townsend or the other two communities?
Okay, it's going to require a vote of the three communities for the high school.
And I'm only asking these because I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Oh,
learn the
no.
process of how you do that stuff.
So tomorrow night I go to Selectmen's Meeting in Ashby, and then the Pepperell Selectmen's Meeting is not until the 16th. Mr. Andrews is trying to move that up.
All right, good.
for us, yes.
So we're one of three?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, just so I understand that.
No.
And number two, do you know the size of kilowatts, how size?
I do. I have it written down. Can I grab it?
Sure, absolutely. Sorry, but it comes into play.
What's that?
It comes into play on...
Oh, not a problem.
Thank you for
I
that.
don't want to quote the number off the top of my head.
Can I ask?
Absolutely.
Will there be any extra power that the town can get any?
Not that I'm aware of right now, but I'd certainly be
Nice
willing
try,
to
Cindy.
ask.
I tried.
They can bank the credits if there are.
Oh, we can bank,
They can bank them.
and we can negotiate that at the budget hearing? Okay.
You like that? Good. She's happy. Thank you for looking that up, Superintendent.
Oh, not a problem. We have the two projects. I have so many numbers in my head on a daily basis.
Yes.
The high school, it is 296 kilowatt,
Okay, thank you. My next question...
444 kilowatts.
What is it now?
296 kilowatts to 444 kilowatts. Make sure I'm reading this correctly. I don't have my
So
glasses.
they have up to 444, bottom is 296? The project.
Oh, that's the DC conversion. Yeah, so AC, it's 296.
Yes.
Alternating current, like we know.
All right, the kilowatts is what I need.
It's, right, it's more in direct current, but after the conversion, it's 296.
Okay. So my question, in layman's terms for me, is essentially what we're doing is allowing the excess space to be leased to a private company.
Yes.
And then they will gather the sun and give us a portion of and maintain.
Yes.
Layman's terms, right? So, okay.
Yes.
All right. So then I don't know if we need to make it part of the motion, then the company will be responsible for all building permits. And we now have our rate now has been changed to, don't quote me, but 3 cents a kilowatt. So it'll be a sizable check they'll have to get to the town of Townsend. Yes.
Is that how it works, Jim? I'm sorry.
They would have, Power Options would have done that as a part of their proposal.
Yeah, they do
so
all
they'd be aware of
the
it.
permits.
Just so a little history, and for the citizens out there, up to this last year, with the help, as you're familiar doing work down there, our building inspector, Mr. Hanks, reviewed.
Oh, yes.
He brought us up to speed. So there's a solar farm down here.
Oh, okay, you're talking about...
And,
okay.
well, but it's still a private company doing this.
Yes.
And it would have been about $200. The town's roughly getting a check for $23,000.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we will be charging who they are, whatever our fees are, like any private person. That's all. I just want to clarify that, that's all. Is that, everyone understand that?
As long as it's still within the first answer I got, that there's no more
Yes.
money that we're gonna...
No, actually, we'll actually be getting money back.
As long as we make money, I really like that.
Well, they're making money too.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that
So,
there's no money.
No, that's important.
So I guess we're ready to vote on the motion, if you...
I just had one other thing. Joan, do you know how, what's the estimate for how much that's going to reduce your electric bill?
About $29,000 a year. The cumulative savings is estimated at approximately $1 million.
Nice,
20 years.
nice.
Thank you for coming up with creative solutions.
So do you want me to reread that?
I will...
It's been moved
I
and
think it's
seconded.
been
so
moved and
Oh, you did second it?
All right, so motion's been made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous, and Superintendent, thank
have
you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Joan, what do you need from us? Do you need a letter?
We do not.
Okay.
I believe, we talked to the Department of Ed, and, you know what, the total savings with both projects, let me get back with that exact number, because I'm a stickler for numbers. Let me get that number for you. But I know cumulative, it's 1 million. We don't, at this point. We talked to the Commissioner's office, and they said if we notify them that the votes will be taken, if I can reach out and ask, I will do that. But they pretty much said, because it's on the agenda, they see that the votes, being
It'll
taken.
be in the minutes.
Yes.
So,
Letter's easy.
layman's term is one more vote and you have it.
2 more.
Oh, you need unanimous?
You're first. Yes, it's unanimous.
Oh, all right, see, I learned something there too. I didn't know.
So to declare it as surplus, you need all 3 communities.
Thank you for educating me there.
Oh, not a problem. And I'll write to you tomorrow morning with the exact number.
Awesome. Thanks for being patient and waiting for us.
That's okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry, it's a crazy thing to come forward to ask for.
It sounds like it's a good thing.
Well, the superintendent's here. Do you want to talk about the upcoming events?
Sure.
So that the community can hear it all?
Absolutely, I'd be thrilled.
Are we okay with the agenda to do that?
I've actually got it on later, so we're covered.
Yeah.
So the answer is...
The little bullet that I said I wasn't going to talk about is the one,
MSBA.
okay.
Oh, that one.
Yep, so we're good.
That's all. Okay, thank you. Yes.
So on October 14th, which is Saturday from 1 to 4, we're having an open house, tours for the community. Everyone is welcome in the 3 communities to attend. They're going to be student-led tours starting at 1 on a half hour. The students want to show off their new space, so everyone's invited. On October 20th at 10 o'clock in the morning, representatives from the Mass School Building Authority, all our team, construction, general contractor, designer, and project manager, and hopefully all of you, and community members. We're having a celebration and a ribbon cutting ceremony. We decided to have that part of dedicating the school, the celebration, to include all the students. So it will, they will be performing and speaking about the learning environment. So officials, state officials, we're reaching out. The treasurer has been invited. That has not been confirmed, but Jack McCarthy from the Mass School Building Authority will attend. And the students at the high school, the student council on their own, asked me to read a letter, their advisor. The students wrote a letter to the taxpayers, and it's been sent to the editors of all the papers because they wanted to thank everyone, and that was student-driven. So it's really amazing to see how they're enjoying the space, and it's beautiful, but it's also amazing to see all the opportunities. They're really taking advantage of the building because every part of that building is a learning environment, so please stop by.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. You're always welcome back and visit us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Good night.
Mr. Crowd, would I be right saying we're going to go on to 3.2?
Correct.
3.2, appoint Dolores Faris to TEMA, Townsend Emergency Management Agency, for a 3-year term effective October 3rd, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
I move to appoint Dolores Farisi to TEMA for a 3-year term effective October 3rd, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. 3.3, appoint Amelia Gentry. Is that Lee?
I didn't think that was her first name.
All right, Amelia Gentry to TEMA, Townsend Emergency Management Agency, for a 3-year term effective from October 3rd, 2017 to June 30th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
I move that the board appoint Amelia Gentry to TEMA for a 3-year term effective October 3rd, 2017 to June 30th, 2020.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Mr. Crowder, we're going to go on to 4.1. Is that correct?
Yes, 4.1, review and accept the award in the amount of $7,200 from the Department of Environmental Protection for Townsend's Recycling Dividend Fund under the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, and to authorize the town administrator to sign the award. You have a letter in your packet from Martin Suberg, the Commissioner of DEP. This is good work that the Board of Health has done, and they're credited for that, so this will allow them to have $7,200 to continue the recycling work that they do.
We'll have a motion.
And will the Board of Health be coming to talk about it?
Once the award has been made and it's finalized, they can come in and they can explain, the plan would be they would come in and explain what they're going to do with the money.
Okay. I move that the board accept an award in the amount of $7,200 from the Department of Environmental Protection for Townsend's Recycling Dividends Fund under the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program, and to authorize James M. Kreidler, Town Administrator, to sign the award.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Mr. Crowder?
4.2, 4.3, 4.4 are permits to cross, alter, and construct within the townway for Unitil. One is to install a bond cable across the gas main located on Emery Road. One is to replace existing test station located on Depot Road. The other is to replace an existing test station located on Riverbank Street. So if it's the pleasure of the board, approve the permits as identified on the agenda.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I move that the board approve the permits as identified on the agenda in items 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 4.5, review, approve, sign one-day liquor license for Terry Roy on behalf of the VFW, Post 6538, 491 Main Street on November 18th, 2017, in conjunction with the birthday party located with sale hours of 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. October 14th, 2017, in conjunction with the wedding reception. Sale hours from 7 to 11 p.m. and 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. and November 11th, 2017, in conjunction with the 25th anniversary party, and that would be with sale hours from also 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve and sign a one-day liquor license for Terry Roy on behalf of the VFW, Post 6538, 491 Main Street. May I include all of these?
I'd be fine with it.
That'd be fine.
Thank you.
November 18th, 2017, in conjunction with a birthday party located with sale hours, I don't understand.
Located with sale hours.
Okay, with sale hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. October 14th, 2017, in conjunction with a wedding reception located at the VFW, Post 6538, 491 Main Street, with sale hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. And the third for November 11th, 2017, in conjunction with the 25th wedding anniversary party located at the VFW, Post 6538, 491 Main Street, with sale hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye. Let the record show it's unanimous. Before we go forward, Mr. Kryler, Carolyn, would it be your pleasure for us to sign those now or after?
It's up to the board. Did start passing them along.
If we got, this is
That's why we get them
those are
to you.
the permits.
All right, so you don't have to chase this down. We're going to just take a moment to sign this, Mr. Kryler. This was already signed. Yep, I'll go back and get Carolyn when we're done.
Today's,
She'll take it. I don't care.
I'll just, she can, is there another one I need to sign?
Nope, I think there's just 3, thank you. Well, there's something else here.
I only signed 2,
spoke.
Gordy. Gordy, I only signed 2. I think. You signed 3?
These are the alcoholic ones.
Thank you.
Second page, 2, Gordy.
That's why you have the yellow markers here, thank you. Appreciate that.
The accountant does that, he puts the little tabs in there.
There's multiple, you get the 2
I
signatures?
guess, oh,
It's 2.
there's one. Oh, I got those.
All right, thank you.
You gotta sign that.
Thank you. We in full compliance, Ms. Smart?
You're good, Gordy.
Thank you. Mr. Kryler, back to you.
Thank you. Next, we get into Section 5, Town Administrator Updates and Reports, 5.11, Open Meeting Law Update. You have in your packets, under 5.11, a copy of an explanation from the Attorney General regarding revisions to the open meeting law. These revisions go into effect October 6th, so 3 days from today. Very briefly, the first change is under definitions. There used to be a provision regarding intentional violations, not being intentional if you relied on the advice of counsel. They're removing that from this definition, but it reappears later in the document. Notice posting requirements, it's a revision removing the various alternative notice positions, notice posting options for public bodies, and offers a single alternative to the bulletin board, which is a website. Next, under certification, anytime a new member joins a public body, they, in addition to getting the standard open meeting law, ethics, and the other documents that they get, they're also required now to get the last 5 years' worth of determinations for that board that relate to the open meeting law. So they have a sense for what the history and practice of that board has been prior to them. Under complaints, if someone has filed 5 or more complaints within the prior 12 months, they're opening up a mediation process. Under resolution, it's removing the requirement that the Attorney General hold a hearing before issuing an order nullifying an action. Currently, the law provides that if there's a violation of the open meeting law, actions contained within that meeting where the violation occurred can be nullified after a hearing. The revision removes the requirement for the hearing. They can still have one if they want to, but if they deem the public's interest is best served by not having a hearing first and doing the nullification, they're now allowed to do that. Next, advisory opinions. The section has never been utilized, and it's being removed. Remote participation, there used to be a codification of the types of reasons you could use remote participation. That's all wiped away now, and the only standard is attendance at the meeting is unreasonably difficult. Meeting minutes, there's always been the phrase approval within a timely manner. They're putting a definition around timely manner to be the next 3 meetings or 30 days, whichever occurs latest. And it says that this is not a rigid requirement, but meant to be a guideline. And those are the revisions that take effect within the next 3 days. Bless you.
Thank you.
Next, 5.12, just a public notice that if they stop into the town clerk's office, they're going to see a different face in the second desk, and that'll be Kelly Merrill. And if they stop into the selectman's office, they'll see a different face, and that'll be Carolyn Smart. So for a period of time, that job switch is in effect, and so far so good. Things have been working well in the transition. Next, we have police station painting project update. The invitation for bids is out and available. There have been 7 requested to date, and the deadline is 10/16. So I'd like to thank Carolyn for being the one that's coordinating this and doing the paperwork. She's done a great job at it.
Question on that?
Yep.
We're starting to get colder. Needs to be above, what, 45?
I think 55. So that'd be obviously worked into the spec, and if it works out that we're not able to do that, then it'll be something to be negotiated to be pushed off in the spring. Public authority towing bid process, town equipment auto body bid process, and town equipment mechanical work bid process. Taking public authority towing first. The town has not, at least as far back as the records show, bid the public authority towing. Public authority towing is when the police department has a vehicle that's in an accident, needs to be towed, or is a parking violation and needs to be towed, is in the way of a hydrant, and there's an emergency situation and needs to be towed. They call whoever we use as our public authority tow. We currently have Harbor Auto Body and Shepco that do the public authority towing for us. My expectation is at the end of the day, all things considered, they'll still be the 2 that'll do it. But we should go through this process, if for no other reason than we currently have people that act on our behalf as public authority tow operators that would go out on the side of the road at 2 a.m. and there may be a disabled vehicle, whether it's a male or a female, somebody at 2 in the morning that is getting met on the dark side road by a tow driver, and we don't have them quarried currently. I don't expect that there are any issues with the people that we're using, but purely from a liability perspective, we should have them quarried and have that on file. So the expectation is we'll put the bid out, it'll have the parameters, which is basically what's being done currently. You have drivers that are certified, your DPU certified, Department of Public Utilities certified. You have a sequestered space within which you can store the vehicles that's secure, and that all of your operators are quarry certified. So fast forward this process, which would be about a 30-day process. My expectation is we'll be right where we are, with the exception of having a file that provides a protection from liability.
So this be like a policy?
It's actually not a policy, it's in the law, it's in the general law, that this subject can be bid. It actually falls under the jurisdiction of the police chief, but as the chief procurement officer, it would be something by charter that would come to the town administrator to put out on the street. And again, I can't emphasize enough, I don't expect anything will change, with the exception of having a file that shows that we're protected from the liabilities that otherwise exist if we don't.
No, there's other rule, like if a car's towed by a police order, there's a different fee than if I just broke down.
The fees are set by DPU.
Okay.
So again, you're not going to see any, I don't expect you'll see any difference.
So we're doing it, we're charging the fees, and this is just a matter of having
They
it
charge the fee.
documented.
They charge the fee. The town isn't involved in that at all. We don't do any charging, we don't do any billing, we don't receive anything. This is something that is,
Right.
they are our agent.
But nothing's going to change with the actual function of towing?
No.
Even if it's for us, for the police, I mean?
Correct.
Okay.
And just to make one final point on that, in some communities, they build into the procurement process that a fraction of, a portion of the fee collected per tow comes back to the town. That's not at play here. There is no consideration of doing that. Again, I want to emphasize, I don't expect anything to change at the end of the day.
And one last question. Does this open it up, if we're going to do a bid process for even the next 2 things we're about to talk about, does this open it up to towns, towing companies or auto body or mechanical, whatever it is, that aren't in town, that aren't currently?
It
Like
does.
if there's somebody just over the border, even in New Hampshire, could they
It
get in
does.
on this?
It does. You may see somebody, I know that example, Aldridge in Fitchburg does public authority towing. They may bid, but the design of the specifications for the bid will place a premium on proximity and ability to respond. So somebody that is close will get a higher rating than somebody that is not as close. So we can't exclude people from out of town, but we will obviously rate higher those that can respond more quickly.
Is the intent to have one contract or a rotation? I mean, right now,
Rotation.
we're doing a rotation.
The expectation would be to continue with a rotation.
Okay.
Again, nothing should change.
Okay, I'm just thinking, look, if there's a bid process, that opens it up.
Absolutely
That means
does.
we could end up, we have a two-company rotation right now. Is if a third company does apply for this, that they could be part of a three-company rotation?
It's currently drafted to be a two-company
Or we want to
rotation.
keep it as a two-company?
Some communities go with one, but the practice has been in Townsend to have it as two.
And we've had
and that would be-
three, if we
that
had
would be
three
the
companies
continuation.
in town, we've had three companies in the past, years ago. It's been a while.
It's structured as two currently.
Okay, I know, I'm not trying to mess things up, I'm just asking. All right.
Okay. Auto body, we also don't currently have a bid out for auto body. Communities generally will. So, again, a lot of this is form over substance. Because insurance companies are going to pay what the insurance company is going to pay. So if we have a cruiser that gets, a dent in the front fender or a public works vehicle, the insurance company is going to do an estimate and they're going to pay whatever they're going to pay to whomever it is that we use. But we don't currently have anybody that has bid, and we have the documentation to show that they have their certifications. They have all of the appropriate licensing. They have the disposal records on file for all of their materials that require a manifest. So again, I don't expect anything will change, except we'll have a record of the fact that we know if we're sending a vehicle someplace and there are fuels or there are other materials or there is some waste that comes from that repair, that it's being handled appropriately and it doesn't create a liability that then comes back to us if we find we're dealing with somebody that is disposing of things in an inappropriate fashion.
Isn't it part of their insurance certification? I mean, it's a state insurance anyway.
It is, and we would get a copy of that insurance. Well, we would get a copy of that insurance. Right now, we don't.
Oh, okay.
We don't have anything on file
So it's
necessarily.
basically to make sure that you have the paperwork as well.
Again, the same thing. I don't expect anything to change, with the exception of the fact that we will have gone through a process, have a file that protects us from the liabilities.
Okay, on this one, like, in the event, you said that you have to have certain certifications to do certain things. And if there were, I know we've had this conversation kind of before, I don't remember all the details, but if there were things that our current people that we're using don't have, then if there's other people that bid, that if one person doesn't have a certain certification, we go to another bidder?
The way it's currently drafted is if the winning bidder is not capable of handling a certain function, we can then go back out to whoever on a per job, a per
That's what
incident
I
basis.
meant, yeah.
So for instance, if there's an issue that requires a certain level of expertise, I know that there was some questions about the fire truck, that had been down at Harbor. It didn't fit inside the building, so some work was being done outside. Some people raised question about that. The work was done correctly, the work was done to our satisfaction, so I don't see that would be an issue. But you could have things like that built into the bid where, the equipment, the work needs to be done inside. You need to have space sufficient to have it all inside. I don't expect that. I don't expect that'll be the case.
Okay.
But if something happened that the fire engine actually had the pumps ruined as a part of the accident, those are specialized equipment that we wouldn't expect would be able to be repaired by a local body shop. Those would be sent back off to the manufacturer who has the specialty to be able to do those repairs. So if they can't handle something that happens, we put that piece out.
And will this take care of the problem also of, I think there was some conversation about the maximum amount of money that we can pay to somebody without having a bid?
It will. This would be that bid.
Okay. Okay, what was the number, do you remember the dollar amount? You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
And
In other
I'd
words,
hate to
If you hit a
go-
certain number, then
Yeah.
it has to go out to bid. This would take care of
It
that,
would.
so we wouldn't have that, oh, we can't go to you, sorry.
It would.
All right.
And again, part of that is strange too, because we're not paying necessarily. Sometimes you have, and again, this becomes a policy question, you have third-party pay. So you have the insurance company that writes directly to the vendor. Sometimes you have it written to come to the town, and then the town pays the vendor. Carol and I have talked about this a little bit. I know that it's been done both ways here, but from a policy perspective, that would need to be nailed down as to how that happens. But only if the town is actually paying it out, does that really trick that.
Most of the time, I think it comes from the insurance company right to the vendor.
That has happened, but not, it happened one time recently, but prior to that time, everything I've looked back on shows that it actually has been coming to the town and then paid to the vendor by the town through the warrant. So we can talk about that piece after. And the last is mechanical work. We currently have cruisers, for instance. They're a Ford product. We have a Ford dealership in town. I was always curious as to why we're not having work done at the Ford dealership. It may be that they don't want the work, they're not interested, they have enough work, but putting it out to bid will give an opportunity for the people we're currently using to step forward and say they want to continue, or perhaps the Ford garage to step in and say that they want to take a crack at the business. So this is just an opportunity for the types of basic maintenance. There's a schedule of types of services that would be covered by this bid. And again, maybe something will change, maybe nothing will change, but we'll have a file that shows that it's been. I'm sorry.
Who's doing the work? Okay. I thought it was the board too.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it may be that nothing changes here, again, with the exception of having a file to show that the procurement's been done. Any questions on those three?
Set.
Thank you. 5.1.7, operational organizational chart draft. You should have seen in a copy of your packet a draft operational org chart. If it meets your satisfaction, I would put it out in draft form to all other boards and commissions for their review and comment. As a part of the process that we worked through with the Collins Center,
Want to look at mine for a second?
Yes, please.
as part of the process we worked through with the Collins Center, under best practices for budgeting is to have an org chart that shows from the 10,000-foot view what the structure of the community is, and then by department, more detailed breakdown. So this would be in furtherance of that. It's one piece we did not do last year that, as we submit for GFAO certification, we would need to do for this year. So I know I got it to you guys a week or so ago. A couple of tweaks were made on the earlier version. It was appropriately brought to my attention that the planning assistant does have a relationship, policy relationship with the planning board. So the planning assistant and the land use personnel were inverted, and now there is a dotted line that shows that policy relationship to the planning board. There's one change that may yet need to occur, and that is on the far left column where you see town clerk under elected with a straight line down to the assistant town clerk. That is true. There also could be and might, at the end of the day, end up being a dotted line showing policy, but because that's now a union position, a solid line that runs back through the TA to the Board of Selectmen. So that's one that was brought to my attention in the last day or so that might need a little bit of tweaking. The rest of it, I think, is pretty tight.
May I?
Absolutely.
I looked at it a few times, and I'm having trouble with the concept of administrative versus organizational chart. Because I kept looking at it as an org chart, but you're trying to say more in this. You're designating responsibility, too.
Right. I think there are two things at work here. One is trying to reflect that you have a number of elected boards and commissions that have direct policy impact on staff. but those same staff in a number of areas, from an administrative perspective, non-policy, but administrative perspective, are unionized, and those fall by law to the select board through the TA position. So the combination of the solid lines and the dotted lines are meant to accomplish that end. So for instance, you'll see the Recreation Commission, the first one off to your right-hand side. It shows as in the line of elected boards and commissions, and it shows a dotted line down to the Recreation Director, showing that there's a policy relationship between that commission and the director. That director's position is unionized, so you'll also see, if you follow from the Board of Selectmen to the Town Administrator, a solid line that then runs horizontally and hits the Recreation Director. So from an administrative perspective, the Board of Selectmen, through the TA's position, has that relationship. But from a policy perspective, the relationship between the elected board and commission and that position is being honored.
It's, I don't want to belabor the point because of the hour that we're looking at right now, but just looking at this, I don't agree with it. But I'm not sure of
Why?
what the next step would be in the discussion.
Can I make a suggestion, please? Can we put this on for the next agenda to have more in-depth?
Yeah, it's
time we deserve.
it's solely a draft.
There seems to be
draft.
questions.
Yeah.
And so that you can have your time, and because of, I have a little knowledge because I've been involved with all the collective bargaining. So why don't we put this on the agenda for the next meeting? And that way we can have a more thorough discussion.
That'd be great.
And between now and then, if you have some
Go to
thoughts,
Jim with your ideas.
it'd be
so
helpful
that we can take less time.
to try to cut it up a little
Does that
bit.
work for you?
Yeah,
That works for you? So I would only ask the board
I think
members,
when we have a shorter agenda, it might be,
if you have any
We
clarity,
really need some
better
time on
conversation.
it.
if, before the next meeting, we'll have a discussion, but if you see any issues that you need to be clarified, if you could do that before the meeting, so that we could get right to the heart of it when we have the meeting. All right, thank you.
is that
Next,
something that Sue could talk to Jim about
Absolutely.
outside of?
Absolutely, I hope so.
To try to work out
positively.
Yeah, I hope so.
Because we won't be
those
there.
questions too, yeah.
No deliberation. All right, Mr. Kryler, what do you got?
5.1.8, approve the hiring of David Henkels as conservation agent. The sample motion, actually, I would suggest changing approve to affirm, just to keep things consistent. This is a position that is outside of the hiring list of the select board, which means by default it falls to the TA. So I would be making this appointment, and I would just be looking for consistency to have an affirmation vote from the select board. So when the employee comes in, they know that they've got the support of the entire body. So if it would please the board, it would be a motion to hire David Henkels as conservation agent for the town of Townsend effective October 3rd, 2017, contingent upon the passing of a medical exam and query check with one-year probationary period. And just before a motion is made, there's been a committee comprised of land use staff and board members that have reviewed resumes, conducted interviews, and this is their unanimous recommendation.
So would it be all right if Sue makes a motion consistent with what you just read?
It's right, it's actually right there. so-
Sorry, I didn't see that.
Look at-
Well, I'm kind of changing hiring to hire, but
Okay,
I do have one question.
sure.
What's the difference between hiring and appointing?
They're spelled differently.
He's hiring, we appoint. Am I correct on that?
That's actually a good way of saying it.
Thank you.
That's reasonable, right? Yeah, that's
Layman's
actually,
terms, right? Yeah.
that's actually pretty clean. Yeah.
Again?
You appoint.
Yes.
There are positions that are listed by charter that the select board makes the appointment for. Those that are not listed as being appointed would default to the TA for hiring.
Oh, because we haven't revised the charter in heaven knows how long, so lots of positions aren't in there.
Or,
Or
yes,
the-
yes,
or
or
vice versa.
there was a decision made to cut it off at a certain point and have kind of the worker positions.
Okay, I'm all set. I move to approve,
The hiring.
yeah, I know, but when you said it, you said hire. Anyway, I move to approve the hiring of David Henkels as conservation agent for the town of Townsend effective October 3rd, 2017, contingent upon passing of a medical exam and a successful query check with with a 1-year probationary period.
Second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Sue? Aye. Thank you. Let the record show it's unanimous. Mr. Kryler?
Thank you. Yes, 5.1.9, Fire Substation Project Notice to Proceed. So, just by way of update, the chief was before you at your last meeting, said that they had an apparent low bidder, but they were vetting the bidder. It's come through the support of the Fire Station Committee, Town Council, our engineer advocate, and the chief, that based on a review of the qualifications and references of the apparent low bidder, that bid be rejected, and the second bidder be given the notice to proceed. So, Carolyn, do you have that? I know I have it in my packet, but... Yeah, gotcha.
Bring up my stuff, you know what I'm saying?
So what you'd be looking to do this evening is vote a notice of award and notice to proceed to Solaria and Zepka Construction Corp., 5 Spring Street, Adams, Mass., for project number 10317, Fire Substation, owner's contract 10/3/17/01, in the contract price amount of $1,344,000, with alternate 1 at $26,400, alternate 3 at $13,400, alternate 4 at $32,240, alternate 5 at $4,000, and alternate 6 at $4,250.
Mr. Kryler?
Yes.
Is the motion need to be read as that?
It could be as simple as read by the town administrator.
Sue? What would your preference be?
I don't have any problem with saying that,
As read by the town administrator, or you read it? It's whatever you want.
I move that the board accept the bid, award the bid, right?
Notice award and notice to proceed.
Notice of award and notice to proceed to Solera and Zapik Construction Corporation, 5 Spring Street, Adams, Mass. 01220, owner's project number 10/3/17, project fire substation project, owner's contract number 10/3/17-01, contract for the town of Townsend, Massachusetts fire substation project, as in the amounts as listed. Okay?
Second.
Oh, you done, okay, second.
Motion's been made, second, all in favor? Aye. Sue?
Aye.
Thank you. Let the record show it's unanimous.
That's all I have for
Do we
you.
need to sign that now or out of session?
Carol, what's your preference?
Town administrator usually signs
Yeah,
as the
I'll be
chief
signing that.
procurement officer.
Thank you for that. On to, would be all right to go to 5.2, I haven't missed anything?
Where we are? Nope.
Okay. Board of Selectmen's announcements, updates, and reports. Sue's up first.
Just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, and we don't have to have a discussion now. But in looking at the policies that we have, the policy books, some of them are really old. Really, really old. So my suggestion would be to, and I mean, if you can come up with an idea too of how to start attacking them, maybe from the oldest and working forward, picking maybe 5 at a time and 5 things that we would review at a meeting.
Sue and Steve, I can make a recommendation before the next meeting. If you could give your thoughts to Mr. Kryler on how we could best do this, and with policies, liability is usually the first thing, time, and also to involve the department heads. But the other is, I agree, it needs to be done, but the workload with the finance is coming up, and all the other extraordinary requests for information comes into the office. I don't know if you have the time, but I would suggest that we talk to Mr. Crowley, give me your ideas, we'll put it on for the agenda to come up with a plan next meeting. Is that okay, Sue, for you?
A plan would be fine, but nothing less than a plan.
Well, that'll be up to the vote of the board, so.
I would like to remind the chair that one of our charges the most important charge that we have besides finance is policy making.
Absolutely, and
It's a-
while you remind me, can I just say something? I've been on the board 2 years, and since 2002, most of our policies haven't been reviewed, and since 2002 to 2015, when I come in here, exit views were not done, and also our managers of the departments did not have yearly reviews. So I'm fully aware of a negligence, and I want to have a conversation on how to make up for 10 years of neglect. So I would ask that we come up with a plan at the next meeting, work together. I'm looking forward to doing that.
Sometimes I feel like if it's not your idea, it's not a good one, but that's okay.
Okay, well, thank you. We have decorum, please. Thank you very much.
The next item that I wanted to bring up was an opioid crisis discussion. I'd like to know what our police department and our police chief, what their plans are for how to fight this in our community. I know there are educational sessions that are given by various groups and by the churches. I know that there's a lot of outreach to families. There's one coming up. Carolyn, I don't have that, by the way. The thing that I'm concerned with goes more toward what Governor Baker talked about a few weeks ago, and that is getting hard on the person who's handing out the drugs. I'm disturbed when I find people saying that you can get drugs at any party you go to. I don't want my grandkids going to a party where there's somebody selling drugs or offering drugs to them. Not in my town. I don't want it happening. I want to know what we're doing about that. I want to give notice to the people who are distributing poison to our children and to our not children, that it will not be accepted in this community. All right? I totally believe in the full approach, and people have an addiction and we need to care for them, but how do you say no the first time and keep from saying yes? And what do we do about getting those people out of our community altogether? In jail, whatever, I don't care. I don't want it here. And I just want to hear from the police chief, and I want to hear from what's going on. How are we fighting it? Not how the state is fighting it, not how the world is fighting it. Here, Townsend.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Crowder.
Having spoken to Sue about this and putting it on the agenda, I know that Chief Bailey is prepared this evening to speak a little bit about, in the last 5 months or so, what he's experienced and what he's participated in and what that looks like going forward. So, Chief, I don't want to put you on the spot, but...
Just 1
I
second,
don't mind
please.
if you put it off.
Okay, I'm not putting it off. I just want to make sure that we don't have any complaints here. It's not on the agenda for discussion, so...
Under Selectman's comments...
I'm looking to Mr. Crowder for guidance.
Yeah, under Selectman's comments, we're fine.
Okay, thank you. And so we'll just do a brief thing, but we are committed to doing a full thing in the future. So, Chief Bailey, thank you. And thank you for your patience in making sure we do it right.
On two fronts. As a police department, we are actively involved in trying to identify drug dealers, arresting them when we can. There's been ongoing investigations in the police department. We have officers who are trained in narcotics and vice. We have officers that at times will go not undercover but plain clothes and work with other agencies. So there is a cooperation and a network of working with our officers, other agencies, and drug task force to attack the problem when we know where it is. Part of the problem is knowing where it is, and the vast amount of it is overtaking that. Some of the other initiatives that we're getting involved in is to try to address the issue on a local level. We're working with Pepperell. Pepperell has gotten an area grant to hire a coordinator for the coin process. That's the Community Outreach Initiative Network. Pepperell has got a grant to do that. It's an area grant. We're involved with them. They will be hiring a coordinator that we'll have the ability to interact with as well. There's a program that I recently signed up with the IACP called One Mind, and with that initiative, our department will collaborate with a mental health provider. We'll find somebody that is willing to collaborate with us. We'll do community groups, provide training to law enforcement in crisis intervention to try to reach out to the folks that are addicted to get them help before they take that lethal overdose. So on both ends, we're attacking it on the legal end of it, but we're also attacking it on the individual method to get the person in assistance and with the agencies that can help them.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One thing the chief and I talked about, and I actually shared this with Selectman Lizio as well, there's a doctor that practices out of Greenfield, Mass., who is an opioid expert, and I went to a talk recently within the last month where she talks about the window between age 10 and age 20, and the percentage that you can reduce somebody's likelihood of addiction if you keep them away from that first experience longer within that window. So to Sue's point, I mean, how do you get at the issue? One of the market-driven ways of getting at it is don't create customers. So I would love to have this woman come in and do a presentation. I'd like to work with Superintendent Landers on it and the chief on it and have it be something that we do through the school department as well. But it gets to the issue of if your grandchildren are at a party and if we've not yet been able to take that drug dealer, that drug out of that party, we've at least restricted the market because we've educated, my kid, your grandson, somebody to the likelihood of addiction, what it leads toward, and through the education side of things, try to dry up the market. There's no one piece of this that's going to be the silver bullet that's going to answer it all. Sue, when you talked about believing in the holistic approach, I mean, we've got to do it from all angles. And when I think about this, I think about the market. If that party is known to be a party that the kids are at that aren't interested, that dealer's not as likely to be there. So if we take away the market or limit the market, I think we're going to send them to a place where they have the ability to sell.
May I?
Absolutely.
I'm probably going to show my age by talking like this, but when I was a kid, there were people dealing heroin. There were kids in my school who we knew were using heroin. We were taught to not associate with those people. That's all there is to it. You don't go near those kids. You don't hang with them. We've removed the stigma that's associated with dealing drugs. We've made it acceptable. Kids don't want to snitch on their friends. Oh, he's a friend. He doesn't mean it. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Somehow we have got to not just tell our kids to say no, but we've got to tell our kids to protect each other too, and to say those kinds of behaviors are not acceptable. They're not acceptable in our house, and they're not acceptable in a party, and they're certainly not acceptable in the town that we live in. So I know it sounds Pollyanna, but it's part of what I grew up with, and that group stayed very small because everybody said the same thing. You don't say yes. All you have to do is say yes once, and that's it. You're done. It's instilling the knowledge that you can't just take it once. It doesn't happen that way. It does not happen that way. But we don't say it enough. We're too polite about how we talk about drugs. We talk about the people who are already addicted instead of trying to save the ones who aren't. And I just want concrete things being done. I want a plan of how that's going to happen. By the way, the superintendent's newsletter, I don't remember the date, but they are doing a show. It's a one-man show on addiction. You might know about it, Chief.
I recall seeing it, and I don't know the date.
I don't know the date either, but maybe if we find it, we can post it too, because they are going to have an evening that night. They'll have one for the public as well. And I think it's a free one down at the high school. But they're doing it for the younger kids, the freshmen and sophomores during the day.
I understand what you're saying, and my career spans the whole area that you're talking about, and it's different at this point than it was many years ago, because you could categorize the folks that were doing it back then. You can't at this point in time. It's your mother, your father, your aunt, your uncle, because the drugs are so available. They're available in prescription form.
I don't care if it's my sister-in-law. I don't care if it's my aunt.
I understand what you're saying.
They're right or they're wrong, and I say they're wrong, okay? And I think people need to start saying that and saying it out loud, and that's what I heard the governor say. He's going to get tougher with people, and I am all for it. And I'm not I don't get this emotional about too many things, but that I honestly believe in, and I am committed to making that happen. I am absolutely committed to it. Anything that you need from me, you let me know.
I understand, but
Okay.
there is that side of it.
I understand
It has
that
to come from many different
that's a
directions.
social acceptance of the problem.
No, I'm not accepting it.
No,
I'm
I know
telling you
you're
that
not.
It needs to be attacked from many different angles.
I agree.
Arrest and conviction is one for sure.
I agree.
But also the clinical help and all of that is a part of that, and it's an important part. So all of it has to come together. Yes, I agree with you.
Thank you, Chief. And Sue, you all set?
Yeah.
Thank you for your thoughtful thoughts on that, and we appreciate that. We usually in updates don't get into these lengthy, but this is an important subject, so I can understand why we're getting a discussion. But in fairness to Cindy, I didn't know if you had a brief, because I would like to get to the chief's negotiations before it's October 4th.
Yes, I agree, but I think I do want to say, as a professional in the field of clinical work involved with substance abuse and mental health, and being very knowledgeable about some of the difficulties with the substance abuse problem that we have in our community, or in any communities in this country right now. The drug dealers, and I don't mean this as an attack on anyone, but are often our primary care physicians, and I support them. I mean, I've broken legs, I've had my teeth out, I've needed the opiates for the things that they're intended for, and I just hope that they're not outlawed at some point. But that's where the drugs are coming from. That's the original place where the 16-year-old football player who gets hit and gets taken to the ER by ambulance and then comes home, or just goes to their primary care doctor and then comes home and they're on an opiate. And there's nobody to help them get off of them. And that's where the drug addiction comes from. If you're out with a fracture for 3 months and you have the propensity to be a drug addict, and that doesn't mean that they're a bad person. They don't know how to get off of it. Their doctor shuts them off. And mom doesn't know, my kids, I got a good kid, and dad, hey, he's a football player, he's got good grades, and everything is going south. There's nobody, we need more to help them get off, not when he goes to his fellow football player who's also on opiates for another problem, or his mom had, or a sister or brother had their wisdom teeth out and they're also on another opiate, and they take another one. Now the one who gave the drug to the brother or sister or cousin or mother is no drug dealer. The drug problem is not what, when we were kids and we look in, the bad kids at the heroin over in the corner, or the mescaline, or the crack, it wasn't crack when I was a kid, but speed or whatever was out there, that was the other corner of the schoolyard, so to speak. Now it's in our own house. Now it's on the football team. It's within. Sometimes, I'm sure that the chief sees this, I don't know if in Townsend, but in law enforcement, parents are getting drugs from their children. That's where the drug dealing is also coming from. And these are family issues. These require a lot of intervention and I'm grateful in my field that law enforcement is not strictly, you have drugs, we're going to throw you in jail. And then I'm sure the chief can answer too that, okay, you arrest somebody for a small deal, a transfer of a drug that's illegal, even if it's an opiate or the higher class, I don't know all the classes of drugs, but that have a higher penalty. It's still first or second offense on a small quantity. It's suspended. The jail, we don't have enough jails. And they get out. And where do you learn most about drugs? Jail. So if you went in with a drug problem, you're coming out of jail with a drug problem. You're not rehabilitated because you went to jail and now have a record, and now you can't get a job because now you have a query, you can't get hired by anybody.
And the problem crosses all those spectrums, and it's different than it was many years ago. It's a much bigger problem, and it's being addressed. And the goal on everybody's part, I think, is to wrap your hands around it rather than go to this one area.
Right.
Is to bring a multi-purpose team
And I think
together
when we
to
see-
reach out and do it.
I think it's absolutely amazing that everybody knows that if you take too much Tylenol, you can ruin your liver.
They don't know that, and I wish more people did.
No, people do know that, okay? They know it because it's plastered all over the labels, etc., okay? But when you have surgery or you have a tooth pulled, you don't need to be totally zonked. Your body is in pain because you had a tooth pulled. You know what? If you go to sleep for a few hours, you're going to feel better. Pull up your big boy pants and act like an adult. I mean, it starts with the parents, because everybody wants a quick solution to every little ache and pain they have. Nobody wants to go through difficulty today. Everybody wants it easy and sweet and nice and non-confrontational. Well, you know what? I'm not made that way. Life is not that way. You are going to find painful things that happen in your life, and there isn't a magic pill for every one of them. And that's a message that we need to get out there to the parents and to the kids. That's life. Life doesn't get easier, it gets harder. And you have to live through all kinds of pain. Trying to make it better by a pill is part of the problem. You know, it's the instant gratification thing. Now, I'm not saying I have a solution to it, but we got to start talking that way too. It's not, oh, poor baby. No, it's not.
Chief?
Sue and Cindy.
Anyway, we could talk about this for hours, I'm sure, but I really do want to do something about it, too.
And I take, and I think everyone watching, and the chief, Mr. Crowler, and Cindy, and me, and you, take that this is a serious condition. But I don't think this is an hour thing. I think this is a community-based things with experts
agree.
helping us out. So normally updates aren't to this, and I appreciate you coming unprepared, chief, for this. But when you and your new deputy chief come forward in the future, maybe we can start developing some plans. But tonight, we need to move forward. No, I actually think we need to move forward. So I've been extremely... So if you need to, I've been extremely, we need to get the work done, but if you want to read that, it's not that it's not important, so please, it's not that it's not important, but this was updates, all right? These things should be put on so the time is allotted.
This is an
So
update,
please,
Gordy.
all due respect, I've been waiting and listening to your important information here. I just want to give it the time it's due, so please read that, and then we need to move forward. Thank you for your
This is an
patience.
announcement.
Thank you, Sue.
North Middlesex Cares invites you to join us at an overdose memorial vigil, Sunday, October 8th, 2017, at 6:30 p.m. in the Townsend Congregational Church. We are hosting this vigil to honor the memory of those beautiful lives who have left this earth due to complications from substance abuse. Music will be performed. The agenda will include speakers, music, and a memory table to pay tribute to loved ones. If there is someone that you would like to have included on the memory table, please bring a framed photo. And this is done by the North Middlesex community, the North Middlesex Cares.
Thank you for...
The concert, the show that I was talking about is the Dirt concert. It's called Dirt. It's October 12th. They're doing one during the day and one in the evening if parents want to go.
Thank you, Sue, for reading that important announcement, as we normally do during this time. I would ask at this time, with the board's permission, that Ms. Smart see if we can put that up on our website, please. Thank you for that.
Thanks for getting there, Carolyn.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for the board. And thank you, Cindy and Sue, for your thought-provoking things here, and we'll try to address them and set time aside in the future. But I think a community-based program might be the way. So thank you, Chief, all right?
Just so you know, I'm going to be at that event. I've been asked to be at that event. I'm going to speak at that event. I've been to a couple of their meetings and
The memorial.
MCARES.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you for that. Cindy, do you have anything on updates?
I do, and I'm going to have a slight shift on a similar topic. That this morning I attended a meeting in Worcester with Michelle, our planning coordinator, administrator. And there was a meeting in Worcester with the Mass Municipal Lawyers Association, the AG's office, and basically planners from throughout the state. Different officials interested in ensuring that recreational marijuana is the law, the bylaws get done, and that the transition to legalized marijuana or recreational marijuana, it's legal now, but the bylaws and so that the communities that have voted in favor of having recreational marijuana, including ours, get those bylaws done in a transition in a good way, so that we don't have to be concerned with companies coming in and getting facilities without the community's approval. So Michelle and I were both there when we talked extensively. The meeting went an hour over, and we talked even after that. So there are a lot of good issues were brought up. There's a lot of conversation, a lot of good review about what the laws are, to make sure that communities can get our bylaws in place that are going to meet the requirements to make sure that communities have the recreational marijuana available and it's done in a legal format. And I know our planning board is working on getting those in order.
there was a lot of concerns at this meeting and a lot of good input to help. And there's also going to be listening sessions by the Cannabis Commission to make sure that, or to help in that transition, to see if any changes in any regulations to make that a reality. It's a good meeting this morning.
Are you all set, Cindy?
I'm all set.
Well, thank you and Sue for your updates and reports. I'm going to skip my updates to the next meeting because I would like to be out of this meeting before it turns to October 4th. So, thank you, folks, and we'll move on at this time to 5.3, approval of regular meeting minutes for September 19th, 2017, and April 25th, 2017. Approve and release executive session minutes of April 25th, 2017. Mr. Crowley, do you have anything before we... Nope. Do we have a motion on this?
I'd like to move that, I move that we approve the regular meetings for September 19th, 2017, and for April 25th, 2017.
Second.
Okay, and does that include the executive session ones too?
No, I left that out.
Okay, so I guess we'll take that first there, second. So in the first part of the 5.3, motion's been moved to second. The first part, all in favor? Aye. Let the show that on 5.3, as read by Sue Lizio, that's been approved unanimously. Moving to 5.3 again, do you have anything you want to say about approval of these executive sessions minutes of April 25th?
I'd like to hold that and discuss it further, perhaps in an executive session.
Okay, so we'll have to post for that, right, Mr. Crowley? Yep. Now, do we have another, I thought we had another executive session still waiting to be approved. Is there another one?
The other draft that you had sent out.
So can we put the two of them on for the same time? Sure. Would that make sense? Is that all you used to?
Yes.
Is that all right?
August 24th? Yeah.
Was the
Yes.
one just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago? Okay, so there's two minutes that need to be approved for executive session, and we will do them at the next meeting. Is that all right, Mr. Crowley?
Gotcha.
And the two board members seem to agree with that, doing that way. So I would ask the members to please have your corrections done so we can do that in a timely manner, please. Thank you. Are we all set now to move to 5.4? Review and sign, do we have payroll and bills or just?
Looks like just bills.
Review and sign bills, payable warrants, out of session.
I move that the board review and sign the bills payable warrant out of session.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second, sorry.
Motion's been made and second, all in favor? Aye. We're going to help Mr. Crowley
We've
here.
got two. We've got two.
Yeah, we're going to go back to
Yeah.
That's why I was asking you, Mr. Crowley.
back to
3.1.
would be 3.11. So it would be a motion to enter executive session pursuant to GL 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel with respect to the police chief.
And we will also have to do a motion after that for 6.1, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you're ready.
I move that the board enter into executive session pending the, executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy or to conduct negotiations with non-union personnel with respect to the police chief.
Second.
Motion's been made second. This requires a roll call vote. Solizio.
COI.
Cindy King. Roll call.
Yes, aye.
Gordon Clark, aye. Let the record show it's unanimous to go into executive act. Could I have a motion on 6.1 at this time, please?